Hey guys, Angus here, bringing another Airsoft review today, and I know what you're thinking. If I'm bringing you a review, why am I outside in these woods in this field? Well, due to popular demand, and since it's rather hot out and it's better to be outside than sitting in a cramped, hot room, we're bringing back the infield Airsoft gun review, and today we're going to be taking a look at CYMA's CM050 Airsoft AK47 AEG. This is a Romanian-style AK47, as you can see, got the folding stock right here, and the version I'm holding has Clash trades on it because it's sold by CyberGun. If you're interested in purchasing the traded version, there's a link down below in the description to Airsoft Station where you can purchase it for about $215. And if you're interested in just purchasing the plain old CYMA CM050, link to Airsoft Station to buy this gun for around $190. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the infield review of CYMA's CM050. Alright, so real quick, before we get out in the field, take a look at some of the gun's features. We are going to go over a few things inside. Now, I've owned this gun for over a year. I don't have really any of the packaging left, with the exception of the box for storage. I don't really have anything it came with, so no need to bring that out here. But it will come with your standard stuff. If you buy the CyberGun version, big flashy box, CYMA, pretty plain box. And, it'll come with the manual, a crappy trickle charger, 8.4 1100 milliamp stick type battery, which we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But otherwise, it's really all you'll get with it as far as I can remember. And let's go ahead and just jump right into the gun's external construction. Externally, you're getting a really solid gun. There's really no plastic on this thing. Your handguard here, this is the real wood version. It's supposedly real wood. It's the cheaper Chinese wood, but it feels nicer than the cheap plastic wood, the fake wood. It is real wood, and it feels honestly very nice with that wood foregrip in your hands. Now, the rest of the gun, at least most of it, is basically constructed of metal. Your top cover is constructed of metal. Your receiver here is constructed of metal. The magazine is constructed of metal. It's a little bit cheaper and flimsier than the other metal pieces on the gun, but it is constructed of metal. Your safety and magazine ejection piece here are constructed of metal. Trigger guard is constructed of metal. Trigger is constructed of metal. Sling mounts are constructed of metal. They are on the other side of the gun. I do apologize. Your folding stock and the folding stock assembly is constructed of metal. Your fire selector switch is constructed of metal. Your bolt is constructed of metal. Your rear sight is constructed of metal. Your front sight is constructed of metal. Your 14mm thread is constructed of metal. And your outer barrel is constructed of metal. The only plastic pieces on the gun would be the big orange flash hider that your gun will come with. That's constructed of plastic. And the pistol grip here, as you can see, you're looking at something, what is that on the gun? It's electrical tape. Your plastic textured pistol grip is constructed of plastic. Now, the grip on the gun, this fell off on me. People were like, why don't you just screw it back on with a screw? It's not screwed on. It was either glued on or it was actually attached to a piece there and it snapped off. But in either way, after extended periods of use, it did fall off. So the flimsiest piece in the gun's got to be the grip here. It was always a little bit wobbly, as you can see. Of course, it's wobbly now. It fell off and is held on by electrical tape. But otherwise, the gun is a really solid thing. Even with the stock out, there's only a slight bit of wobble with the stock. It's a metal gun, and it's very, very solid. Externally, it's a great piece, a wall hanger, or a gun you're taking into the field. Now let's talk a little bit how to put the battery into the gun, and then we'll head out in the field. Alright, now to talk about how to put the battery into your gun. One thing I do want to mention, this is a CyberGun licensed version, as I stated, and of course you do have your trade on here. Got a nice painted on trade here. It says Kalashnikov, and I got the picture of the guy himself. This is painted on, it's not engraved or anything, and as you can see, the actual end of the word Kalashnikov is actually faded off, so all it says right now is Kalash. So these trades will rub off eventually unless you take, prime care of the gun. But they're a nice feature to have on there, and for what, another 25 bucks you get them on there. Now, battery is stored underneath your top cover, as with some AKs. In order to pop the top cover off, you simply want to push this button in here. This will push back a spring, the same spring that controls the blowback on the gun. And when you push it in, really got to push it in tight, the top cover will pop off. This is basically the same exact thing we did with the ICS Galil. Top cover, as I mentioned, made of metal. Set it off to the side, and here's where your battery is going to go. This gun takes stick-type batteries. Get your small type connector, and as I mentioned, it comes with an 8.4 1100 milliamp battery. The 8.4 it came with worked for a while, and then actually one of the wires split, and I have to solder that back together in order to get the battery to work. But honestly, since it does have the battery space, I recommend you just buy the 9.6. It's another 30 bucks, but trust me, the 9.6 will get you a much better performance. Watch the chrono to see the rate of fire with the 9.6, and it does have the space to fit it. Place the battery in, and you actually slip it farther into here, which is hollow, so the battery will fit. And at that point, you want to connect to the connectors of the battery so that it is connected. Make sure this fuse is tucked down on the side so it doesn't get in the way of the battery. And once it is connected, take your top cover and slip that back on like so. Make sure it's lined up in its groove and push downward to lock the top cover on. But make sure you do not take this spring out. As you can see, this metal piece is covered in a spring. That spring is actually, it has to stay in place in its groove in order for the blowback to activate. As you can see, if this was taken out, the blowback would simply come back once, and that's all that would happen. It would just stay back there. If you watch my really old video, I didn't have the spring in, it just stays back there. Nothing else happens. So make sure you do have the spring in, but battery space on this gun, it's big enough to house a 9.6. Get the 9.6, guys. You'll be happier with that performance. So with that being said, told you how to put the battery in. Let's head out in the field, take a look at some of the features of CYMA's AK47 AIMS Romanian AK. Now that we're out in the field, let's start off with some of the basic features of the gun. Start off the weapon's fire selector switch. The fire selector switch of the weapon is located on the right side of the gun. It's your typical AK fire selector. As I mentioned earlier, constructed of metal, it does have a little bit of interference with the stock when the stock's folded. So if you're going to be changing it around, I'd really recommend you just keep the stock unfolded the entire time. Otherwise, it's going to get hooked on the stock and it's going to be unable to move to semi-automatic unless you really push against it, causing wear on the selector switch and the stock. But anyway, your fire selector switch, setting up top, safety. Flip it down one, you're on full auto. All the way at the bottom, you're on semi-automatic. Typical AK47 settings. The fire selector switch on this gun is a bit loose. This screw here will come undone after a while, and you have to take a pair of pliers or a wrench of some sort and tighten it back in. But once it's tight, it really doesn't have too much issue. The selector switch moves rather easy. Just beware, if this gets loose, this will be slipping around all the time, and eventually it'll just keep staying on semi, even when you have it on full. So make sure you keep that selector switch tight. Crap, I'm out of ammo. Now your magazine is of course located on the underside of the gun. It's your typical big old AK-47 magazine. One of the reasons I'm not too into the AKs is because of the bigger magazines on it, and it does add honestly a slight bit of weight to the underside of the gun. In order to eject the magazine, simply push your magazine ejection plate in. Mag will come right out. This is a 550 round high capacity AK-47 magazine, as mentioned earlier. It's constructed of a decently solid metal. It's a little cheap, but it is overall very solid. 550 rounds. Some people say you can hold it to 600, but it does say 550, and that's what I've seen, 500, 550. In order to load it up, standard high cap, flip open the trapdoor up top, fill it up with your BBs. Since this gun is shooting around the 420 feet per second area, really recommend some .25s at least in this gun. BBs will feed through the top, and in order to wind your high cap, simply want to wind it at the bottom. This will cause your BBs to feed. Since it is an AK mag, does have that very long spring, you do have to wind it for quite a little bit in order to get all your BBs fed up there and ready to go. But once you do have it fully wound, it shouldn't be too hard to keep it going. Now, magazine compatibility with this gun, high caps seem to be what it likes. I attempted to use some mid-capacity magazines in here made by Tokyo Marui, and they would actually get jammed in the magazine well. Even when you push the ejection piece in, they would get hooked, and you would have to actually pull the mag backward, feeling as though you're going to break the lip of the mag or even the magazine well of the gun. So this gun seems to only want to take high caps. Maybe mid-capacity magazines will work, but honestly your best bet is probably some high cap mags. In order to put your mag back in, take the lip of your mag, place it in like so, and push back on the back of the magazine. So front of the magazine in first, then follow up by pushing the back in. And at that point, your magazine will be inside the gun, pretty secure. Wind it up, and once you've wound all the way, you're ready to go. Now when you're in those tight situations where maneuverability is key, it's nice to have a gun that does feature a folding stock like CYMA's CM050, so you can maneuver a bit easier and make your gun a bit more compact and short. Now as you can see, the gun stock is currently folded, but if you were in a longer range situation, you wanted to have this stock back on your shoulder, it does unfold. In order to unfold the stock, simply push this large button right here, and at that point the stock will fold outward. Now, when your stock's extended, it really does make the gun a lot longer. It makes it around the actually almost 3-foot long area. Now, when the gun is that long, it honestly is a little bit uncomfortable, especially with the Romanian AK's wire stock. This is a stock that you really do need to get used to because it's honestly very, very uncomfortable. And you'll hear a lot of Romanian AK owners say that. It's really uncomfortable on your shoulder. The stock's constructed in metal, but that's not really the reason. It's just, it's such a weird wire stock that it really just digs into your shoulder, and it does really take some getting used to. To help comfort a little bit on the stock, the butt of the stock is serrated to help grip the shoulder. But even with that, the stock is still a little bit uncomfortable, and if you really have it pushing into your shoulder, it'll make your shoulder sore and it'll really start to hurt. So this is one of those guns that actually say, keep the stock folded. It's a little bit nicer, as you can see, once you push the button when the stock's extended, it simply just folds over on its own. The only con being when the stock's folded, that it does get in the way of the fire selector switch and make it a slight bit harder to move that down to semi-automatic. But when the stock's folded, it's around, you know, the 2-foot area, and it's a much more compact, nice gun. The AK-47, of course, does feature iron sights, and I'll zoom in on them for you now. The weapon's rear sight is adjustable and is located just behind the gun's real wood handguard. Now, in order to adjust the rear sight, simply push in the 2 buttons on each side of this small piece right here. And as you can see, it'll slide around, and this will raise up. As you can see on top, it's really nice at the other time to do this. The numbers are painted in, not just engraved. Now, in real life, this symbolizes, you know, you can adjust it for the distance you want to aim and shoot at. And if you were to unadjust it, simply lay flat like so. Now, this sight does have a groove in it to line up with the front sight of the weapon, which is just your standard AK-47 sight with the post in the middle. It can be adjusted via front sight post adjustment tool, which I do believe this gun includes, and otherwise it's just your open circle front sight post line, your adjustable rear sight up with it, aim and fire. Of course, if you didn't want to use this weapon's iron sights and wanted to put an optic on here, the gun does have the side rail mount for you to put a scope mount on. If you're interested in purchasing a scope mount, I do believe Airsoft Station sells some for about $25. With the gun with as much range as this, it's really important you keep your hop-up adjusted. In order to access your hop-up and adjust it, simply pull your weapon's bolt back. As you can see, this will reveal your battery and your hop-up. The hop-up itself is this small piece right here, that sort of tab sticking outward. It's not a gear-styled hop-up. You can simply slip your finger in and slip the hop around. I have the hop-up perfectly adjusted right now, so I do not want to touch it. This is something you could easily do when you're in the field, considering it's not that gear that occasionally is tough to wind. It's simply a small tab you push around with your finger. Now that we've covered basically all the main features on this gun, let's go ahead and get into the final conclusion of this in-field review. Now, as we covered up in the review studio, this gun has a very nice external construction on it with the real wood furniture on the handguard. It is that cheaper Chinese wood, but it still does have a pretty nice feel to it. It's not the plasticky wood. And you do have basically an entirely metal construction on this gun, with the exception of your pistol grip here, which, as you can see, electro-taped on mine, considering it did snap off after extended periods of use. But otherwise, the gun is a nice metal construction, very durable, very solid. Does give the gun a weight of around the 8-pound area. And features-wise, as we've explored out here in the field, you do have your fire selector switch, typical AK fire selector switch, safe, full auto, and semi-automatic. The gun's fire selector switch, make sure you tighten that bolt so it doesn't get loose and keep slipping around. And when the stock is folded, it does seem to interfere with the selector switch a little bit. So if you're going to be switching it around a lot and go on semi the entire time, I'd really recommend you keep your stock extended. Onto the folding stock, it's nice to have a gun that you can make compact when you need to. When the stock's extended, it is a little bit uncomfortable, but that's a complaint you're going to get with even the VFC Romanian AKs. And in order to fold it, simply push in a button and fold the stock over. When the stock's folded, it makes for a nice compact AEG, very nice maneuverability. If you were going to take this into maybe an urban situation, which unless you did a spring change, I really couldn't imagine because it's shooting around the 420 feet per second area, it'd be a nice gun to maneuver and slip in corners with. The gun is electric blowback, meaning the bolt does come back each time the trigger is pulled. Make sure you don't mess up that spring up here inside the top cover next to the battery, otherwise the blowback will not work. And battery-wise, you got a nice amount of battery space up there. It comes with an 8.4. I'd really recommend you pick up the 9.6. It'll improve your performance quite a bit. Magazine-wise, I've never had any feeding issues with this magazine. This magazine's always done well. It's a metal 550 round high cap. Mid cap magazines, though, the magazines didn't want to feed, and they also did not want to come out of the gun. So be wary of that. Again, I tried TM magazines. Maybe mid cap AK mags will work, but the Tokyo Marui ones did not want to work inside this AK. Otherwise, this is a very, very nice AK. It does give you the customization option with the side rail mount if you did want to mount your optic up here, put a scope mount on it instead of using the gun's iron sights, which are still decent. This is a really nice AK for the price. CYMA makes some good AKs and some of the best budget guns around, so if you're looking for a budget AK, can't afford the really expensive VFC AK47 AIMS Romanian AK, CYMAs may be a good option. So link down below in the description to airsoftStation.com. Thanks for watching, guys. It's been Deathcore Airsoft's review of the CYMA CM050.